It is rivalry weekend, as you've heard, in all the opens of all the shows.
Yes, it is. The traditional Civil War weekend. Oh, wait. No, it's not.
Well, I mean, it's just both rivalry games. One might be closer than the other, I guess, in points in that matter. But, like, both are kind of coming in with zero juice and totally flat, given what the Cougs just did against North Texas.
Yes.
And what Oregon State just did at Texas Tech.
Last year, at least, you had a little bit going in because, remember, Oregon had been really bad in their first two games, and Oregon State was 2-0. So the thought was, like, is this actually going to be a game? It didn't end up being one, but at least going into it, we had that talking point. And then the Cougs and the Huskies were playing in Seattle, and he had Fish in his first year, and they, we weren't quite sure.
The tier was good.
The tier was good, and so there was a lot more juice, I would say, going into the games last year. And one of them ended up being a phenomenal football game.
A great football game that had Washington State beating Washington.
They just won it last year.
Doesn't feel that way this year.
No.
I tend to lean that Washington is going to house them. They were a drive away from losing to Idaho, but they beat San Diego State, so we kind of thought something different of them. Oregon State. This came from the Oregonian, OregonLive.com. Our friend Bill Oram, the first to report it, that Oregon State did agree to continue the rivalry starting back up in 2027, and it will run through at least 2032. Now, here is, Scott Barnes saying, I listen to the fans, and I hear you, and I hear you. Like, you have shown zero indication you're hearing anything outside of cha-ching, the paycheck is cashed.
And I wonder, what is the paycheck? Is there any? I didn't see the details on how much is going one way or the other.
That's what I don't know.
Okay.
The
I didn't know if anybody
I was
had that
referencing
reporting.
was his individual paycheck.
For sure, yes.
He doesn't listen to anybody.
No, his check clears every 2 weeks.
He still thinks Trent Bray is the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, are you watching football? Are you watching the games? Okay. But the rivalry is going to kick back up after next year.
Yeah.
So they'll take a year off, first time in 80 years, and then they'll pick it back up in 2027, starting in Eugene. And as many Beaver fans noted, thanks for listening to us, Scott Barnes. We don't get the game at home until 2028.
Yeah, you get back-to-back games in Eugene. You really won that negotiation down there in Corvallis. Now, Oregon's side of this is simply that they, in odd years, they only play 4 conference games at home. And so they were saying, if you want to start this and play in 2027, we have to play it in Eugene because we have to play 7 home games in order to make the money that we need to make for the year. And in 2028, we can go on the road because we get 5 home conference games, and so we can play 2 non-conference games at home and have 1 be on the road. And that's where I just didn't quite get it from Oregon State's side of, if that was the stance from Oregon, why wouldn't you just say, okay, let's start the series in 2028 to get a small moral victory? Just a little bit. People still don't want the game to happen. I think the majority of your fan base is done with it, and I don't blame you at all. And my take on it the entire time has been, whatever Oregon State wants to do, I'm cool with. If you guys want to cancel the game, cancel the game. I get nothing out of it anymore and won't get anything out of it likely this weekend.
You get a free dub. You get the in-state bragging rights.
Yeah, I'm not one of those Duck fans that enjoys the punching down and making fun of Oregon State for what has transpired to them. I don't get anything out of that. I have a lot of friends and family, and I work with somebody who is a Beaver fan. I work with 2 people who are Beaver fans, and none of this has been enjoyable for me to see what has happened to their program. That was the epitome of Scott Barnes not reading the room. So if Oregon's coming to the table and saying, we want to play the game, but if you want to play in 2027, it's got to be at Autzen, why isn't the simple counter negotiation just to be like, okay, let's start the game in 2028 then? That way, the last game that was played would be this year in Eugene, and then the next time the Civil War restarts is in 2028 in Corvallis, and you don't have back-to-back games that are happening in Eugene.
So you can watch the show on YouTube. You can chime in at the fan text line 503-864-6326. And if this has come out and we're just missing it, please let us know. Like, text police, be on alert here. My only counter is there has to be money involved, right?
I would tend to think so,
because
but
Oregon
I don't know.
State is signing up to get their ass kicked.
If Oregon's going to Corvallis,
free?
I don't know. Is Oregon going to pay to go play a road non-conference game in Corvallis? I don't think you're getting money for that game. You might get a paycheck for coming to Eugene.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, did he hear? Because to me, look, I'm not sourcing this out by reporting. I'm just giving an opinion.
Yeah.
I took his supporting Trent Bray comments as we're cheap. So, like, the bragging of the war chest means nothing to me as of right now.
Right. What are we doing with the war chest? Where's that going? Is that
well,
just
you got to
sitting in an
preserve
account
it,
somewhere?
Andy. You got to preserve it.
Yeah, you got to.
And maybe he'll end up being the AD who does the classic, support the guy publicly, and then fire him in a week or 2.
Yeah, there's the idea of what else is he supposed to say publicly. We're starting to question our head coach.
Yeah, well, the biggest red flag of that was talking publicly because he was never going to come out and not support him. So what do? You don't talk.
Yeah. Just don't do an interview.
You stay silent and you wait to see what happens in a quote-unquote rivalry game. So to me, it smells, you could say, well, why didn't you wait out for 2028? It smells like money, but again, if it comes out that they're not getting any money and they're just signing up for 2027 to get it back for the sake of having it back, then okay, then that's that. But I don't know. It's
I think the question would be like for Oregon State fan, because again, I think this debate should be on your side of this and not mine at all. Like this should all be determined by Oregon State. They're the ones that got screwed over here.
Well, I don't think that's accurate. I think Oregon is sitting they're sitting on the perch and they're in a position where they can say like who we play matters to people, right? So like we can choose to play Oregon State for the sake of saying we're preserving it. We care about the rivalry. That's a public win for them. They also could look at it secretly behind the scenes of like, yeah, it's a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly how they view it.
Versus they could also say no to this and say, let's schedule a better game. And they
well, again, I think you're giving them I think Oregon is getting the absolute win here because they are in a conference now that's going to force them to travel a ton. Dan Lanning highlighted that, and I was surprised he said it on Monday at his press conference where he was asked about continuing the rivalry, and he basically said, it's nice to have a game that's right down the road. And we got to fly to Rutgers for a conference game this year. We just had to go to Chicago for our first Big Ten game. So, yeah, having a non-conference game that's on the road, that's a 40-minute bus ride to get there, is a pretty nice thing for us to be able to do. I think the question I would have for Oregon State fan, and maybe the answer isn't known amongst the fan base right now, in the future, what do you want the non-conference to look like? Because I think there's different roads that you can kind of go down, and they've clearly picked the road that they want. They want to play Oregon every year if they can.
Easy answer.
Do you want 3 patsies for 3 automatic wins? Do you want a massive paycheck in terms of like, let's go on the road and play Ohio State, Alabama, and play one of these non-conference games on the road to get a paycheck?
Well, you would only have 2 because this is your non-conference.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying not having this being decided. Like if you were Scott Barnes, what would you want the non-conference to look like? If you're taking Oregon off the board.
Sure.
Or maybe some fans want Oregon on the board and then 2 patsies along with it and try and get 2 wins, and then you play Oregon every year to keep the rivalry alive.
Well, I think until they relieve Bray of the job, he's the guy, right? So, like, as long as he's in charge, I would just say whether it's Bray or it's another coach, it's the easiest answer. It should be 3 patsies.
3 patsies.
You should be doing everything you possibly can to get yourself to halfway of a bowl.
I tend to agree with that.
And then if it's Bray, and boy, we'll be eating a lot of crow if it's Bray, but if it's another person and you do build this up and you find some success in a turnaround in the Pac-12, the new Pac-12.
Yeah.
And I know I've used them too much, so I apologize for that. Then I think you go Tulane. We have established something. We're good. We're getting good players. We can play Duke and whoop their ass. And I think until you get to that point, it should be automatically 3 patsies. And then if you ever get to a point back to where you were with Jonathan Smith at the peak, yeah, go schedule Minnesota. Go schedule Kentucky.
Sure.
Go get a
Northwestern. Winnable Power 4
and
game.
you can say those are patsies too. Yeah, but they're in the Big Ten.
It's
they're
a
in
power
the ACC,
conference team.
Yeah, go get one because you know what? Tulane beat Duke, and maybe Duke won't be that amazing. We're going to look back and say, well, they got the Power 4 win. And,
it looks good on your resume at the end of the year.
And they won their conference, and here we go, playoff. Like
Florida might suck, but South Florida getting that win was a big deal for them.
Because they lost to Miami, and it doesn't matter because South Florida won in week 1 against a ranked Boise team, at least a Boise team that has respect to people.
And then Florida was ranked
and
too.
And they beat Florida in the swamp, and even if Florida is 7-5 or 6-6, they're still going to get that's an SEC road win.
Yeah.
You're doing everything you can to preserve a great record and to put yourself in the best possible place with your new situation. And that is, can we be the group of 6 playoff representative? So the easiest answer is it should be 3 patsies.
Yeah.
But they have now signed up for just 2 options, 2 available options.
Well, it should be more than that, right?
patsies.
Because I think you'll be able to, if I'm not wrong, there's 9 teams in the new Pac-12 iteration, 9 football teams.
I think it's 8.
Is it 8?
Swag, can you? Oh God, I can't.
I mean, what's our number out for Pac-12 football teams?
I thought they just got to 8. With
it's 8.
Texas
So
State.
you're only going to play 7 conference games. So you're going to have 5 non-conference games every year.
So you should have more patsies.
Which is insane. And maybe that change is involved. I'm sure they're eventually going to add more teams down the road.
Well, they're playing Washington State twice this year.
Well, yeah. And so you'll have 7 and 5. So you'll still have the ability to go schedule some patsies in non-conference or maybe go get paydays. And maybe the answer is they want to be somewhere in the middle of this.
Right.
Everything about this week sucks. I'm getting nothing out of it. I know we sold it, and there's that like rah-rah. For anybody who grew up in the state, especially in our era, like
I don't think there's rah-rah this week.
No, I don't think there's any. Like to me, like if you're Swag's age, you remember when both programs were nothing, and you remember toilet bowls and nothing games. If you're more our age, like the Civil War was one of the biggest rivalry games in college football. It felt like for a decade. Like it was truly back and forth. You had years where they came in preseason ranked number one.
It was
in our bubble from that like 2000
sure, yes.
when I turned 11 years old to like 2009. Every single year, not every game was great. Some of them were blowouts one way or the other. Joey threw 5 picks. There's a game in the fog.
But it was the home team.
But it was the home team that was winning every year, and seemingly you had Oregon go to a Fiesta Bowl. You had Oregon State go to a Fiesta Bowl. You had games where Oregon State was playing to go to the Rose Bowl. You had the winner going to the Rose Bowl in 2009. Like, it was one of the best and most competitive rivalries that ever existed in college football. It felt like for a 10-year span where at moments it felt like the eyes of the college football world were on our little state and our little game at the end of the year.
For sure.
And it felt great. And now to try and keep going in September when the game's not in November and you're not going to go back to traditionally when it was played and you're playing back-to-back games now in Eugene, even as a Duck, like I get nothing out of them killing Oregon State this weekend. There's no pridefulness. There's no, that's awesome. I mean, my mindset is kind of shifted to we're playing Penn State next weekend already.
Yeah.
And let's get out of this game healthy. I don't really care what the final score is. Next weekend is a massive game that I can't wait for. But all of it is just, it's genuinely sad with everything that's happened around it.
I want to ask this question, then we'll go to break here because we're already against it. Oregon State through 2032 with Oregon. It's looking out ahead, and we have so many unknowns that we can't answer here. Like, that's so far away in that sport.
A very long ways away.
Do you look at that game and say 2032, they get to a point within that time frame where this is like a 10-point difference? Can they get back to ever making this a game in that window?